Joe Burrow made it crystal clear what he thinks about the Bengals' 2025 schedule, and the more that I think about it, the more I wonder why the NFL didn't grant at least one of his wishes, and in this video, I'll explain why they need to listen to what he had to say. Hi again, Bengals fans. John Sheeran of A to Z Sports Cincinnati here, and it's always fun and interesting to see when and if Joe Burrow's influence actually matters on the scale of the entire NFL. In the years that I've covered Burrow in a Bengals uniform, it's been very apparent that he doesn't care about anything other than just playing ball. It doesn't matter what he's wearing, it doesn't matter what time the game is, it doesn't matter where the game is. He just wants to play, and he just wants to win, and he doesn't care about anything else. So when he does clearly show that he cares about things beyond that, I tend to take notice. Burrow spoke to local media for the first time in several months this offseason as the Bengals continued to roll through phase 2 of the offseason workouts, and he was asked about the NFL schedule that was released last week. Not like a lot of you, Burrow had the same blunt reaction to the Bengals having to go to Baltimore for the third consecutive year on a Thursday night to play on Thursday Night Football under the lights in that very hostile environment. And it's also the fourth consecutive year that they've had to play Baltimore on the road in primetime. He was very clear about that. But that wasn't his only grievance about the Bengals schedule this year. When it was rumored a couple months ago that the Bengals were going to be the Miami Dolphins opponent for the NFL's first ever game in Spain, Burrow was all over it. He totally wanted the Bengals to play in that game and to play an international game for the first time since 2019, which was the year before he was drafted. But of course, the Bengals weren't chosen to go to Spain and play the Dolphins. That was the Washington Commanders. And in fact, the Bengals aren't going overseas at all this year. And that is something that genuinely disappointed Burrow. When he was asked about the Bengals schedule this year, he said, quote, "I think part of the reason I wanted to do the quarterback show," he's referring to the Netflix program that he's going to be on this summer, "I wanted to help grow the game internationally. And so to not have a stage like that is a little disappointing because I feel like I've consciously worked hard to try to grow the game internationally over the last 18 months or so. So hopefully at some point in my career, we can go over there." Now, Burrow by nature is a very private person. He doesn't like to go out in public very much. He likes to do some of these events with a lot of celebrities and everything like that, but he tends to keep things very low key. But I don't think he's blowing smoke about trying to put forth an effort of growing the game from an international basis. Just last year in June, he went to France to take part in the Vogue World Fashion Show and also did a lot of interviews about growing his brand and growing the NFL's brand in general. Of course, he referenced his involvement in Quarterback Season 2 for Netflix, which airs later this summer, and that will be watched by not only people in this country, but NFL fans all over the world. On the surface, this feels like something that Burrow genuinely cares about. I don't think he has any reason to lie in this case. I don't think he just wants to fill up his passport and to find time for some leisure trips. I think he recognizes the fact that he's one of the faces of this league, a league that is trying to grow outside of these borders, and that's something that he feels responsible for. And because he's one of the bona fide superstars of this league, it makes perfect sense why the NFL would want to plaster his face all over England, Germany, Spain, Brazil, wherever they're playing outside of the US. And again, if that's something that he really wants to do and is willing to embrace, I'm not sure why the NFL wouldn't embrace it as well. Even if the Bengals in Cincinnati don't have this crazy US market, that's not really going to matter that much when you're playing in a different country entirely. And if the face of this franchise is willing to put in all the work that the NFL wants to in order to grow the game in those markets, it seems like a perfect match. And regardless of Burrow's sentiments, it does seem like the Bengals are primed to play in an international game here sooner or later. It's been 6 years since they've been across the pond, so they're very much due for another trip. But regardless, I'm very interested to see if this answer from Burrow carries any weight for how the NFL makes its schedule next year. And it would not shock me at all if the Bengals were on a plane to Europe sometime in 2026.